The Harlem Empire, Frank Lucas and the Heroin Dynasty. The Foundation. The story of Frank Lucas is not merely a tale of crime. It is a complex narrative woven into the fabric of American history, reflecting the harsh realities of racial injustice, poverty, and the relentless pursuit of power. Born Frank Lucas in La Grange, North Carolina, in 1930, his early life was steeped in the brutal conditions of the Jim Crow South. He grew up in an environment where racial violence was commonplace, and the law offered little protection to black citizens. One formative and deeply scarring experience was witnessing the murder of his 12-year-old cousin by the Ku Klux Klan for allegedly flirting with a white woman. This horrific event, coupled with the systemic oppression he faced, instilled in young Frank a profound distrust of authority and a burning desire to escape the confines of his predetermined fate. He vowed never to be powerless again, a resolve that would shape his entire life. Seeking opportunity and escape from the South's suffocating racism, Lucas migrated north to Harlem, New York, in the early 1940s. Harlem at the time was a vibrant, bustling metropolis, a cultural mecca for Black America, pulsating with jazz, art, and intellectual discourse. Yet, beneath its glittering surface, it was also a crucible of poverty, crime, and social inequality. For a young man like Lucas, with little formal education but an abundance of street smarts and an unyielding will, the streets of Harlem offered a different kind of education and a perilous path to advancement. He quickly learned the unspoken rules of the underworld, starting with petty hustles and observing the intricate hierarchy of the criminal landscape. He was not immediately a kingpin. Rather, he was an astute student, absorbing every lesson the streets had to offer. His pivotal moment came when he crossed paths with Ellsworth "Bumpy" Johnson, the legendary godfather of Harlem. Bumpy Johnson was an anomaly in the criminal world, a highly intelligent, well-read, and charismatic figure who commanded respect not just through fear, but through a unique blend of strategic thinking and a strict code of conduct. Bumpy was known for his sharp suits, his love for chess, and his ability to navigate the complex relationships between the black underworld and the powerful Italian mafia families. Lucas, initially working as a driver, bodyguard, and enforcer for Bumpy, found himself in an invaluable apprenticeship. Under Bumpy's tutelage, Lucas learned the nuances of the criminal trade. Bumpy taught him the importance of discretion, the value of loyalty, and the necessity of maintaining a public image, even for a gangster. Bumpy's philosophy emphasized avoiding unnecessary violence, maintaining order within his territory, and operating with a certain gentlemanly decorum. He was a strategist, a negotiator, and a figure who, in his own way, provided a semblance of stability in a chaotic environment. Lucas absorbed these lessons, watching Bumpy interact with rivals, police, and the community. He learned about the delicate balance of power, the art of negotiation, and the importance of a reliable network. However, Lucas also observed the limitations of Bumpy's old-school approach. Bumpy's era was slowly fading. The traditional Italian mafia still held significant sway, but the drug trade, particularly heroin, was rapidly evolving. The old guard, with its established hierarchies and reliance on traditional supply chains, wasn't fully adapting to the changing landscape. Heroin was becoming increasingly prevalent, and the demand was skyrocketing, creating a massive vacuum for anyone bold enough to fill it. Lucas, with his keen eye for opportunity and his ruthless ambition, saw this gap. He wasn't content to remain a lieutenant. He harbored his own grander vision. He wanted to be the boss, and he envisioned a path to achieve it that Bumpy, with his ingrained respect for certain criminal traditions and his declining health, couldn't or wouldn't take. Even while serving Bumpy, Lucas was quietly making his own observations and forging discreet connections, preparing for the day he would step out on his own. Bumpy Johnson's death in 1968 served as the ultimate catalyst. With the old king gone, the throne was open, and Lucas was ready to apply the lessons he had learned, but with his own innovative, audacious, and ultimately far more ruthless twist. He was no longer just a student. He was ready to become the architect of his own empire, one built on a blueprint that would shock the underworld. If you're fascinated by the untold stories of history's most notorious figures, make sure to subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell so you don't miss our next deep dive. Frank Lucas's genius, albeit in a criminal context, lay in his ability to identify and exploit the inefficiencies of the traditional drug trade. In the 1960s, the heroin supply chain was convoluted and controlled primarily by the Italian mafia. Drugs would pass through numerous middlemen, each taking a cut, leading to a diluted product, inflated prices, and reduced profits for the street-level dealers. Lucas recognized this archaic system as a significant weakness, a bottleneck that stifled true entrepreneurial growth. His radical idea was simple, yet revolutionary for its time. Cut out all the middlemen and go directly to the source. This was an unprecedented move for an African-American drug dealer in Harlem, challenging the established order and the racial barriers that typically confined black criminals to the lower echelons of the drug hierarchy. The Vietnam War, a tragic chapter in American history, inadvertently provided Lucas with the unique opportunity he needed to execute his audacious plan. Southeast Asia, particularly the region known as the Golden Triangle, comprising parts of Laos, Thailand, and Myanmar, was a major opium-producing area. The presence of hundreds of thousands of American soldiers in the region created a perfect storm of demand and supply, and more importantly, a logistical pipeline that Lucas would ingeniously exploit. Establishing connections in this distant and dangerous part of the world was no small feat. Lucas's key contact was his cousin, Leslie Ike Atkinson, a master sergeant in the U.S. Army stationed in Bangkok. Atkinson, known as Sergeant Smack, had access to military resources and personnel, making him an invaluable asset. Lucas himself made several perilous trips to Southeast Asia, immersing himself in a foreign culture, navigating treacherous negotiations with local warlords and opium producers. He had to build trust, demonstrate reliability, and secure a consistent supply of pure, uncut heroin. These were not mere transactions. They were high-stakes diplomatic missions in the heart of the global drug trade. The Golden Triangle strategy was a masterclass in criminal logistics and supply chain management. Lucas's approach involved direct purchase. By buying pure heroin directly from the source, Lucas bypassed the mafia and other intermediaries entirely. This meant he acquired heroin at a fraction of the cost, often paying as little as $4,000 per kilogram for a product that would fetch hundreds of thousands, if not millions, once cut and sold on the streets of America. This direct sourcing ensured higher purity, lower cost, and astronomical profit margins. Ingenious smuggling method. The most infamous aspect of Lucas's operation was his method of smuggling the drugs. While the exact details have been debated and sensationalized, the popular narrative involves using the coffins of fallen American soldiers. The core idea was to exploit military transport and logistics. Lucas and Atkinson allegedly bribed military personnel, including pilots and morticians, to facilitate the transport of heroin. The drugs were reportedly packed into specially constructed false bottoms of furniture, or even, as the legend goes, inside the coffins of deceased soldiers, which were then flown back to the United States on military cargo planes. This method was audacious, morally reprehensible, and incredibly effective, leveraging the sanctity of military operations to conceal illicit cargo. Secure distribution network. Once the heroin arrived in the U.S., Lucas had to ensure a secure and loyal network for its reception and distribution. He meticulously built this network, often relying on family members and trusted associates from his native North Carolina, who were less likely to be known to Harlem's existing criminal elements or law enforcement. This tight-knit group ensured discretion and loyalty, minimizing leaks and internal betrayals. The quality advantage of Lucas's product, branded as Blue Magic, was its defining characteristic. While street heroin typically contained only 10 to 20% purity, Lucas's Blue Magic was often 98 to 100% pure. This unparalleled purity allowed him to cut the heroin multiple times with diluents like quinine or mannitol, increasing its volume exponentially. Even after being cut several times, Blue Magic remained significantly purer and more potent than anything his competitors could offer. This superior product commanded loyalty from addicts and dealers alike, creating a powerful brand in the illicit market. Lucas's operation was more than just drug dealing. It was a sophisticated import-export business. He applied corporate principles to crime: vertical integration, meticulous supply chain management, and stringent quality control. He was a criminal entrepreneur, transforming a fragmented, inefficient market into a streamlined, highly profitable enterprise. The risks involved were immense: international travel, dealing with foreign criminals, bribing military officials, and constantly evading federal agents. Yet, the rewards were equally astronomical, laying the groundwork for an empire that would soon dominate the streets of Harlem and beyond. What do you think was the most audacious part of Frank Lucas's Golden Triangle strategy? Share your thoughts and insights in the comments below. The arrival of blue magic heroin on the streets of Harlem marked a seismic shift in the city's underworld. Its unparalleled purity and potency quickly earned it a fearsome reputation. Addicts, desperate for a stronger, more reliable high, sought it out relentlessly. Dealers, recognizing the competitive advantage, clamored to be part of Lucas's network. Blue Magic wasn't just a product, it was a brand, a promise of an intense, almost mythical experience that overshadowed anything else available. Lucas meticulously built his distribution network, prioritizing loyalty and trust above all else. He understood that the success of his operation depended on a tight-knit, disciplined organization. To achieve this, he largely bypassed the established Harlem criminal elements, many of whom were already compromised or known to law enforcement. Instead, he recruited family members and trusted associates directly from his hometown in North Carolina. These individuals, often new to the urban criminal landscape, were fiercely loyal to Lucas and less susceptible to infiltration or betrayal. This strategy created a more secure and less permeable organization, allowing him to maintain strict control over his burgeoning empire. Establishing dominance in Harlem required more than just a superior product. It demanded territorial control. Lucas achieved this through a combination of intimidation, strategic alliances, and the sheer reliability of his supply. While he preferred to avoid unnecessary violence, he was ruthless when challenged, ensuring that his territory was respected and his operations ran smoothly. His street dealers were disciplined, efficient, and well-supplied, ensuring that Blue Magic was always available, further solidifying its market dominance. The Blue Magic brand became iconic. The name itself evoked a sense of mystique and power, signifying a product that was both potent and exclusive. This branding was crucial in a competitive market, allowing Lucas to command premium prices even as he offered a product that was, in its initial form, cheaper for him to acquire. The purity allowed for multiple cuts, maximizing profit while still delivering a superior street-level product. Lucas's ambition extended far beyond the confines of Harlem. Recognizing the immense demand for high-quality heroin, he began to expand his operations to other major cities across the United States. This required setting up new distribution hubs, establishing new networks of trusted dealers, and managing an increasingly complex logistical challenge. His empire grew, reaching cities like Newark, Detroit, and Los Angeles, transforming him from a Harlem drug lord into a national criminal figure. The wealth accumulated by Frank Lucas was staggering. At the peak of his operations, he was reportedly making millions of dollars a day. The sheer volume of cash was almost incomprehensible, requiring sophisticated methods for handling and laundering. He invested heavily in legitimate businesses, acquiring nightclubs, real estate, and even casinos in the Caribbean, attempting to create a veneer of legitimacy for his illicit gains. However, much of his wealth was simply stashed away, hidden in various locations, a testament to the difficulty of integrating such vast sums into the legal economy. Lucas's lifestyle became a notorious symbol of his success and his hubris. He reveled in ostentatious displays of wealth, a stark contrast to Bumpy Johnson's more understated approach. He wore custom-made suits, often paired with extravagant chinchilla coats, and drove a fleet of luxury cars, including Rolls-Royces and Cadillacs. He owned multiple homes in New Jersey, North Carolina, and Puerto Rico, and showered his wife, Juliana Farrate, with furs and expensive jewelry. One of his most infamous acts of public display was attending the Joe Frazier-Muhammad Ali Fight of the Century in 1971, wearing a $100,000 chinchilla coat and matching hat, sitting ringside. This brazen display, while a symbol of his seemingly untouchable status, also drew the unwanted attention of law enforcement, who had never seen a black drug dealer flaunt such wealth so openly. Despite his ruthless criminal enterprise, Lucas also cultivated a complex public image within his community. To some, he was a self-made man, a defiant figure who had risen from poverty to challenge the white establishment. He provided jobs, albeit illicit ones, and occasionally engaged in acts of charity, fostering a Robin Hood perception among certain segments of the Harlem population. This complicated perception allowed him to operate with a degree of community protection, making it harder for authorities to gain traction. At this pinnacle, Frank Lucas seemed untouchable, a man who had defied all odds to build an empire of unprecedented scale. He wielded immense power and influence, but this came with the constant threat of rivals, the ever-present shadow of law enforcement, and the psychological burden of maintaining absolute control. This chapter paints a vivid picture of a man at the zenith of his criminal career, seemingly invincible, yet unknowingly sowing the seeds of his own destruction through his very success and the attention it garnered. If you're finding this deep dive into Frank Lucas's empire as captivating as we are, hit that like button to show your support. At its zenith, Frank Lucas's empire was a marvel of criminal enterprise. Millions of dollars flowed into his coffers daily, fueled by a vast, efficient network that stretched from the poppy fields of Southeast Asia to the streets of America's major cities. He had achieved what no other black drug lord had before him: direct control over his supply chain, bypassing the traditional power brokers and establishing an unprecedented level of independence and profitability. His blue magic was the gold standard of heroin, and Lucas was its undisputed king. However, such immense success in the illicit world inevitably draws unwanted attention. Law enforcement, particularly federal agencies like the Drug Enforcement Administration, DEA, and the New York Police Department's narcotics units, began to take notice. The sudden appearance of high-purity heroin at remarkably low prices in Harlem was a glaring anomaly. It didn't fit the established mafia-controlled supply chains, signaling a new, formidable player had entered the game. Lucas's lavish lifestyle, far from being a discreet display of wealth, became a beacon for investigators. His infamous chinchilla coat at the Joe Frazier fight was not just a fashion statement. It was a critical mistake in terms of discretion, a public declaration of wealth that screamed for scrutiny. Dedicated task forces were soon formed, their sole purpose to unravel this new, unprecedented drug operation. As the empire grew, so did the inherent treachery of the drug trade. The sheer number of people involved in Lucas's organization, from international suppliers to street dealers, increased the risk of leaks, jealousy, and betrayal. Disgruntled associates, feeling they weren't getting their fair share, or those caught by law enforcement and offered leniency, became potential informants. The immense pressure of running such a vast and dangerous operation, combined with the constant threat from rival gangs and increasingly aggressive police, created a pressure cooker environment that led to internal strife and a breakdown of trust. This constant threat and the weight of his empire began to take a severe psychological toll on Lucas, manifesting as growing paranoia. He became increasingly distrustful of everyone around him, even his closest family members and longtime associates. Every glance, every whispered conversation, every unexpected event fueled his suspicion. He implemented extreme security measures, constantly changing his routines, employing bodyguards, and maintaining an almost obsessive vigilance. The psychological burden of living under such intense scrutiny, knowing that betrayal could come from any corner, was immense. The need to maintain absolute control often led to ruthless violence. While Lucas had learned discretion from Bumpy Johnson, the scale and stakes of his own operation demanded a more brutal approach when faced with perceived threats or disloyalty. Those who crossed him or threatened his empire faced swift and often deadly retribution. This was a stark contrast to Bumpy's more measured, strategic use of force. Lucas's violence was a tool for maintaining fear and order in a world where trust was a luxury he could no longer afford. Slowly but surely, the cracks began to show in the seemingly impenetrable facade of his empire. Operational errors, sometimes born of overconfidence, provided openings for law enforcement. More critically, federal agents successfully infiltrated his organization, turning key players into informants. These informants provided invaluable intelligence, detailing the structure of his network, his smuggling methods, and his financial dealings. The sheer volume of cash generated by his operations also became a liability. It was difficult to manage and launder discreetly, leaving financial trails that investigators meticulously followed. Wiretaps, surveillance, and financial tracking became the tools by which law enforcement slowly but surely built an airtight case against him. The realization dawned that the empire, once seemingly invincible, was now vulnerable, and the net was closing in. The pinnacle of his power was simultaneously the beginning of his end, as the very elements that built his empire, ambition, innovation, and ruthlessness, also contained the seeds of its destruction. Don't let these incredible stories fade into history. Subscribe to our channel for more gripping narratives about the figures who shaped our world, both for good and for ill. The end of Frank Lucas's reign came swiftly and decisively. In January 1975, a massive, coordinated federal and local law enforcement operation launched simultaneous raids across multiple locations, culminating in Lucas's arrest at his luxurious home in Teaneck, New Jersey. The raids yielded overwhelming evidence: vast sums of cash, large quantities of blue magic heroin, meticulous financial records, and crucial testimony from informants who had finally turned against him. The king of Harlem's Heroin Dynasty was finally caught. Facing a staggering sentence of up to 70 years in prison, potentially life without parole, Lucas made a controversial and pivotal decision. He agreed to cooperate with the government. In exchange for a reduced sentence, he became a federal informant, providing extensive testimony against corrupt NYPD officers and other drug traffickers. This move was shocking, a betrayal of the criminal code he had once lived by, but it was a pragmatic choice for survival. His cooperation led to over 100 indictments and convictions, including many high-ranking members of the NYPD's Special Investigations Unit, exposing a deep-seated network of corruption within law enforcement that had allowed drug operations to flourish. In exchange for his cooperation, Lucas's initial 70-year sentence was significantly reduced. He served approximately 5 years before being released into witness protection. However, his attempts to go straight were short-lived. In 1984, he was rearrested for attempting to sell heroin again, a testament to the difficulty of escaping the gravitational pull of his past. This led to another prison sentence, and he served several more years before his final release in the early 1990s. Life after prison was a stark contrast to his opulent past. Lucas attempted to live a legitimate life, working with his daughter to help at-risk youth and speaking out against the dangers of drug dealing. He also embraced a new public persona, giving numerous interviews and consulting for films, most notably Ridley Scott's 2007 blockbuster American Gangster, starring Denzel Washington as Lucas. This film brought his story to a global audience, cementing his place in popular culture, though it also sparked debate about the romanticization of his criminal past and the accuracy of certain events. The legacy of Frank Lucas is complex and multifaceted. His direct sourcing model fundamentally changed the drug trade, forcing law enforcement agencies to adapt their strategies. He demonstrated that traditional mafia control could be bypassed, opening the door for other independent drug traffickers. His story is a stark illustration of the American dream twisted by systemic racism and poverty, leading to a criminal empire built on ingenuity, ruthlessness, and an unyielding will to survive and thrive against all odds. It highlights the complexities of crime, ambition, and the elusive nature of redemption. However, it is crucial to remember the devastating human cost of his blue magic. While Lucas may have seen himself as a self-made man, his empire was built on the destruction of countless lives in the Harlem community and beyond. The purity of his heroin led to more potent addiction, more overdoses, and a deeper spiral of despair for those caught in its grip. This provides a crucial counterpoint to any romanticized view of his life, reminding us of the profound suffering caused by his enterprise. Frank Lucas remains a controversial figure, a brilliant criminal entrepreneur, a ruthless killer, a government informant, and a symbol of both the dark side of ambition and the enduring struggle for power and survival in America's urban landscapes. His story continues to fascinate because it challenges our perceptions of good and evil, success and failure, and the blurred lines that often exist between them. It serves as a powerful historical document, reflecting the social, economic, and racial dynamics of mid-20th century America and the profound impact one man's choices can have on an entire community in the course of criminal history. His Harlem empire, though built on illicit foundations, stands as a testament to a unique chapter in the annals of organized crime. What are your final thoughts on Frank Lucas's story? Do you see him as a criminal mastermind, a product of his environment, or something else entirely? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more captivating historical narratives.